Thanks for joining. This is Live with Miami's Community News, and my name is Michael Miller. Our guest today is the Olga Espinosa-Anderson, and you are the Assistant Director of Disposal Operations for Miami-Dade County.
Yes, I am.
Perfect. All right. So let's talk about what that really means. What is this disposal facility?
Okay, well, disposal facilities are actually where people can get rid of their garbage, their trash. One of the things that people don't know, or a lot of people don't know, is that we have trash and recycling centers. We have 13 of those in the neighborhoods where folks who are in our service area and who pay our disposal fee can actually go there and dispose for free. You can take your old couch, your refrigerator, your stove, and stuff like that. So we have that in neighborhoods. Aside from that, we have our North Dade landfill, which is located in the north end of the county. And then we have a South Dade landfill that's in the southern end. But what other people still don't know is we have 3 regional transfer stations. The Central Transfer Station, the Northeast Transfer Station, and the West Transfer Station.
Let's talk about the south end for a second.
Sure.
We used to call the one down south Mount Trashmore. How did that name come about?
I'm not sure how that name came about, but I speculate that back in the days, it was very different. You know, you had a piece of property, everybody just goes and, that was your dump. You go and you dump there. Now, today, everything is more environmentally friendly. When you build a landfill, they have, there's certain regulations now that you have to have liners to make sure to protect the environment. So it's a different world that we're living in today.
So let's talk about that. In the older days, 20, 30, 40 years ago, you could just dump it and it wasn't a big hullabaloo. Nowadays, if you dump stuff out on the streets, all right, that's creating a hazard, all right, and we know people want to know what they should do with their old oil, their old gasoline, the stuff left over from painting their houses. So what should they do with that?
Okay. Well, we do have this home chemical centers.
Yes.
We have one in West Dade and we have one in South Dade. Where actually, again, anyone that lives in the county can actually go to these facilities and they can take your old paint. Let's say you painted your house and now you're going to repaint it and you don't need the extra old paint. You can take it to the home chemical center. And the interesting part about it is that residents can kind of come by behind you. And let's say I need a little bit of white paint. You could come to home chemical center and we'll give you that paint for free if we have some on hand.
Yes. So Olga, there are different divisions in the disposal of products that we don't need anymore. So we have the guys that come and pick up your garbage, your recycling, the bulky waste, and that they come and they pick it up out of the front yard. We're trying it out for the first time. Let's see how good it works. All right, I'm sure it's going to be good. And then we have what you do. As far as let's talk about any one of the dumps that you like to. What is it called? It's called recycling facility?
No. We landfills.
Landfill.
We have landfills.
So what is a landfill when they first say this is where it's going to be? All right. What does the county do to protect our water supply?
Okay. Well, first of all, when you're going to actually open a new landfill, the first thing is, siting. And you're always going to go through the NIMBY, not in my backyard or what have you. So ideally, if you were to open a new landfill, it would be in an area that's nothing around you. And, and that was like, for instance, our South Dade landfill. That was the case way back when it first opened.
That was 35, 40, 50 years ago?
Exactly, about 50, I think. I'm not quite sure. But anyways, there was nothing around it. So it's perfect. It was in the middle of nowhere. But what happened was that, people started buying land nearby and building closer and closer and closer to the landfill. So now, we're not in the middle of nowhere. So finding the right site would be the first thing if you want to open a new landfill. And then, of course, there's a lot of planning that goes into it. Again, environmental issues. There's liners that have to go into.
Tell us about the liners that go into the ground.
Okay.
All right.
Yes. Now, by my own admission, I'm not an engineer.
Okay.
But basically, when you're going to, you have to get a permit, first of all. Okay. And your permit will give you all the specifications, all the do and don'ts of what you can't do. But one of the things that you must have is this liner that goes on the bottom, and it basically protects the environment. It protects from, because when water, just rainwater, hits the garbage, it turns into what we call leachate. Okay.
Say it again.
Leachate.
Leachate.
Yes.
Okay.
It turns into leachate. So you have to have a plan on how you're going to get that leachate out or how you're going to manage your leachate. You have to have a plan how you're going to manage the gases, because through time, as the waste decomposes, it's going to produce some methane gas.
I see the one, I don't know if it's Dade County or Broward County, where they have the big pipes sticking up and it lets out some of that gas.
Right. And that would be our gas collection systems. And now the beauty of that, though, is that when it does go into the air, it's already kind of been processed. So it's no longer, a danger to the environment. So all these things have to be taken into account when you are building a new landfill.
So disposal of our end products is pretty significant for us.
Mhm.
Just to go over, I understand, you can take your green dumpsters, the garbage cart stuff goes over to Doral. They burn it, create steam, create energy. That building is run on that. Also, you sell down south to 35,000 homes.
Yes.
Then nearby somewhere, there's a recycling plant that takes all the other stuff and they put it together. All right, and they resell it. So in your department, that is the stuff that's not resold, that's put in to decompose.
Right, which would be your garbage. A lot of people don't know that there's a difference between garbage and trash. Your garbage is like your household waste. You didn't finish your dinner, you throw it out, that's garbage. While trash may be something like your tree cuttings, it could be a couch, two different things. But now, that's not the only place where it could go, to the waste to energy plant. The majority of our garbage and trash goes there. However, it could go to a landfill. It may go to the North Dade landfill, or they may go to the South Dade landfill. Although the North Dade landfill does not accept garbage.
Which one?
The North Dade landfill.
And where's the North Dade landfill, more or less?
It's on 21500 Northwest 47th Avenue.
So that's near the stadium, it's sort of?
Sort of. The stadium's on 27th Avenue, off of 27th at about 199. So it's not that close. It's just like right on the county line. You can see the turnpike from it.
And down south, that one is near, tell us a nearby landmark.
Ooh, geez. What's down there? Oh, the marina. The marina, what is that restaurant called? Oh, geez, I forgot.
That's okay. But you can see it from a roadside. How far away can you see that?
Let me see. How far away can you see? Well, it's a big old mountain. You can see it from the highway.
Okay. So any idea how tall that is?
Oh, gee.
And how big it is?
Woo.
Like a miniature. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Frank, I'm so sorry. All right?
No, that's okay.
So it's like this volcano that's out there. We keep putting stuff into it.
Right. It's huge. I mean, and in all honesty, we're on a fourth cell, because cells 1, 2, and 3, because the landfill is divided into different cells. Okay. So now on cell 4, and it's almost full, but we already have cell 5 that's already been developed, and we're ready to use it as soon as we need it.
So is this one where the bulldozers go and they keep pushing the stuff in?
Yeah. Well, what if I run you through where the garbage goes when they pick it up from your house? How about that?
Good.
Okay. So the collections, the garbage man comes to your house. He picks up the green cart, throws it in there. Now, depending on where the route is, and that's what they call all the different locations of the neighborhoods they have to go to, depending where the route is, a driver may actually go to what we call a transfer station. And that's exactly what it is. They stop, they transfer the waste, they dump it there. Okay. Then our transfer division, which is the drivers that work for me, they come these big tractor trailers and they load the garbage and they load the trash. Majority of it goes to the waste to energy plant, but some of it may go to the landfills. So
inquiring minds want to know. I'm just a big old kid, all right. And so at the transfer stations, wherever they are, they have these big machines that pick up the stuff and put it into these trucks and take it to one of the two places.
Right. They actually
one of the three.
They have like a tipping floor, is what we call it. And the trucks dump it there. Then we have someone that's on a what we call waste equipment operator, and he's pushing and compacting it. And then when the trucks are ready, to be loaded, then he pushes the weights into the trucks. Now it depends. We have two different methods of loading our trucks, depending on which station it is. One we have that use what we call compactors, where there's a machine that actually has like this long handle, and it's pushing it and pushing it and pushing it into the trailer of the tractor. Okay. And then we have loading from the top. No, we have loading from the top, where there's a tunnel and the truck goes into the tunnel, and then there's an opening, and then the waste equipment operator is pushing the waste over the edge and into the actual tractor trailer.
Okay. So you mentioned back to landfill, you've already, the number 4 is filled. You're starting to work on number 5. What do you call it?
A cell.
A cell.
Yes.
So what happens to the first 4 now?
Well, the first 3 are closed. Okay. Because, after it's full, each permit, and let me say, each landfill is totally different. Our landfill will never be the same as someone else's landfill. Okay. And even our landfills, a North Day landfill is different than South Day landfill. But basically, once you reach the height that is permissible per your permit, you have to close that cell. And there's a process. Again, I'm not, I'm an engineer, so I don't know all the exact things that happen, but you basically have to close the cell. And at the end, it looks like that pretty green mountain with grass on it.
Yes.
Okay. But that's not the end of it. You're required in the state of Florida to maintain that closed cell for 30 years. And that means cutting the grass. If it's still producing gas, make sure to have a gas system in there to collect the gas and a system to collect the leachate.
In the old days, people would take their debris left over from their house construction and dig a hole in their front yard and put that stuff in there.
I don't think that's such a great idea.
Tell us why that's not such a great idea.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's probably the most environmentally friendly thing to do.
Yeah, but not friendly. And at some point, that stuff starts to decompose, which means that it's going to
probably sink. Right now, that type of material, though, construction material, doesn't really produce leachate per se, or if it, so from that standpoint, that's not so bad. But you're right, it might be something that may sink. And again, that's more, probably an engineer might be able to give you a better idea what actually happens there. But I don't think that's the best idea.
Okay, so what happens when we run out of landfill space? Is that possible?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
that's
what
possible.
happens?
Well, then the county's elected officials have to make some, serious decisions pretty soon. Because like I said, South Day landfill, we're on our last cell. We haven't started using cell 5 yet, but we're ready. But once cell 5 is full, that's it. There's no more cells in South Day landfill.
And when is that? How many years does it take to fill up the cell?
I don't know how many years. I would say that you might be able to get 20, 30 years. It all depends. Again, there's so many variables that can affect that, because if you get a hurricane, obviously, or you get multiple hurricanes, that's additional stuff.
Remember Hurricane Andrew, where people just started burning the stuff?
Well, that's kind of scary too. but then that's additional waste that you had not accounted for that now you have to goes into it. So you run out of space even sooner.
So lots of times we hear about, not in my backyard, except for the people that moved into the area and then complained about the noise or the smell. It'd be like people moving to Miami Springs, then complaining about the airplanes.
Right.
So I see that frequently. I see it up north in Drow, all right? Because when one of those, I don't know if it's the county or it's another company that's up there, remember that people were bitterly complaining about it. But most people should be able to look at an area and say, hey, listen, I want to move where there's no planes, no schools, all right, no horses, no boats, no whatever, and I just want to be alone. Or you can move and have other stuff that's going to happen.
Exactly.
So have you been to any of those public meetings where the county wants to expand a public dump, all right, landfill,
right,
and talk with the neighbors when they complain?
I personally have not been to one of those meetings. I do know that there are some neighbors, like you said, who are not happy with our presence, and we really do want to be good neighbors. So we do what we can to mitigate if there's any odors. Like for instance, and at our Northeast transfer station, there is a community there that's relatively close now, what wasn't there before. So we invested in buying a good quality odor control system. That it's a misting system that we run it to kind of mitigate the odors. Although the waste doesn't stay there in a transfer station, just like I said, that is there temporarily, and then it gets taken out. but we always want to be good neighbors.
One of the things I've seen with county staff when they go out for neighborhood get-togethers, always very controlled. All right, and they expect the unexpected, expect that people aren't going there to heap praises on you guys, but to demonstrate that they have a problem with it. And so we invite people to go to those meetings so they can get something done. If the minimum or the maximum is that you've been heard, sometimes that's what we want. Sometimes there's a change that needs to be made. In this case, you've connected some device that makes it easier,
Right.
to live there. So people should not be discouraged. They should be encouraged when they have these meetings, and they can read whenever these meetings are, and to be able to go to those areas. So right now you have. Let's go back to landfills. You have 3. You're
No, yes, we actually have 3 active landfills. We have the North Day landfill, the South Day landfill, and then there's the resource recovery ashfill. And what happens is after we burn that the garbage and the trash, obviously it's going to be ashes. So we have an ashfill where we take that ash, and that's where we store it. And now we are actually doing something pretty innovative. We're doing a pilot program with a business that may be potentially able to use that ash in creating cement.
That's amazing.
So that would be amazing.
Just for clarity, I've been told by some of those people on your staff that it's around 10% of what is burned is left. So if it's 1,000 pounds, you wind up with 100 pounds of ash.
Right.
The ash now is taken to a place and it just stays there.
Right.
All right. But at some point, maybe somebody's going to have a use for that.
Exactly.
That would be amazing.
It would be. You think about it, it's another form of recycling.
Yes. And I'm amazed when you see that everything that gets recycled gets wrapped up and sold to somebody who takes that and they reuse it. And then, of course, the other stuff, for the most part, it winds up getting burned, right? Mm-hmm. And I think is it Homestead that gets the power?
Yes.
City of Homestead, who has a lot of pride in being able to provide electricity to the residents down there. I think it's a really neat thing. Yes. And there is a certain joy that they have, all right, that they don't get blasted, or at least like Florida Power and Light does. But so at least somebody has a complaint or a question, they have somebody local to be able to talk to. So can we talk a little bit about you?
Sure.
Okay, there we go. Okay. How long you been with the county?
Okay, well, I've been with the county like 32 and a half years. And I started when I was 2 years old. And I'm sticking to that story.
So tell us about the different areas within the county that
I've worked. Yep. Okay. Well, I actually started my career in 1989. And back then it was called Public Works Disposal. And I was still going to college. So I was working full time and going to college at night. So they hired me to actually work as an account clerk. I started at the bottom. And as funny as it may seem, that one of the divisions that I had to basically, everything was manual. So they had these tickets. So I'd have to sit there and add up the tickets to figure out what the tonnage was for the day or what have you. And then I would do the spreadsheet and so we could see what the tonnage was for the month. So I started doing that. Once I got my degree, I did leave the department. Well, 6 months after I started, they merged with solid waste collections and became solid waste management. And I was there for about 2.5 years. And once I got my degree, I moved on to my first professional position. And it was interesting. The only position in the county, I don't even think it exists anymore. It was called the graffiti removal coordinator. Okay. And it was kind of unique because, like I said, I was the only one. And 2 days out of the week, I would go to the schools and talk to kids about, why graffiti is bad and how much money you spend on cleaning it up and all that good stuff. And then the other 3 days, I was a quasi enforcement officer. I would actually go out and give warning notice to property owners because they're responsible for keeping their properties graffiti free. Of course, they didn't like me so much, when they got their warning notice. And
especially since they didn't
put it there. Exactly. So it was kind of a tough thing to do. So I did that for like maybe, about 6-7 months. And then Hurricane Andrew hit. So, of course, nobody cared about graffiti then after, we're trying to rebuild. So they reassigned my duties and I started working with community planners. We used to be responsible for the community development block grant. So I was reviewing grants, making recommendations of who should be funded and stuff like that. And I was there again for like another 2 years. And then I moved on to what I thought was my dream job. And that was to work in the Department of Communications. And initially I was hired to do public relations for the commissioners. And 2 weeks after I was hired, my boss quit. So our director didn't feel comfortable having two new people. So she reassigned me to do all special projects for the county. I loved that job. I got to go to all the events, I got to plan everything. And interesting enough, one of the things that I was planning was the grand opening of these departments called Team Metro. So they were actually part of the county manager's office, but they were regional offices where people could come in and try to get assistance, whether it was with services or whether it's code enforcement. Um, and I had applied for a job with them before I got hired with communications. And then the director says, "Oh, we're going to be calling you for an interview." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not interested." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Oh, I'm in my dream job. I don't want to go anywhere." And she's like, "You should always keep your options open." I'm like, "No, no, 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 thank you." She's like, "Olga, you're coming to this interview." And I'm like, "Oh," I said, "I'm wasting your time. I don't want to leave." So I go to the interview and then they offer me the job. So I was like, "Oh gosh." So I told them, I need to think about it. And I went home and I did the most elementary thing. I took a piece of paper and I put pros and cons. And I realized if I don't take this job, I'm a real dummy. So I went ahead and gave my notice. And
that was at Team Metro.
Yes. And I went to Team Metro and I was a regional coordinator. And what I really loved about that job was that I got to work in the community where I grew up. I grew up in what's Miami Gardens today. Back then it was Carroll City. So that's where I grew up and my office was in Carroll City. So I had the opportunity to give back to my community. And I did that for about 8 years. And then Miami Gardens, they incorporated. So they closed down the office, but it was a blessing in disguise. I got promoted and they put me over the department's outreach and education division. So I did that until they dismantled Team Metro, several years after that.
So Team Metro was like the local community councils, which was they had a given area, right? And they got to be really familiar with the areas. And when we would write stories about zoning issues, I'd always get the phone calls from our friends in Kendall in the Team Metro office that was there. By the way, I grew up 195th Street in 7th Court.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so not too long ago, I was driving by, and my wife, who's younger, she grew up in the area. And then my son-in-law, who's 25 years younger, he grew up in the area.
Okay.
And I go, how does that happen? So I'm driving by, and there's this lady standing outside the house that I moved out when we were 5 in 5th, 4th grade. I said, I used to live here. She goes, "Really?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." And I said to her, "Is there still a gate between your house and the one behind you?" She takes me back. Still there.
You're kidding. Wow.
So she knew.
She knew that yeah.
And I go, okay, upstairs, downstairs. And it was really a unique feeling to be able to, to do that and go back 50, longer than that. Right? And we Miami Gardens has really come a long way, and,
Yes.
and we're delighted. And we know that our most recent county commissioner, Oliver Gilbert, former mayor up there of Miami Gardens.
Yes.
And we're pleased for the people that have been able to provide local, because we're all about that.
Yes.
And so here you are. You've been with the county for many years, very successful. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And where'd you go to school, by the way?
Well, I went to college. You mean to FIU?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went to Miami-Dade my first 2 years. I had an academic scholarship, so I went there my first 2 years, and then I transferred to FIU where I got my bachelor's, and actually my bachelor's in communications. And then after that, I went back to school and got my master's at FIU also in public administration.
Good for you.
Thank you.
My daughter has her master's in public administration.
Oh, really?
Her undergraduate and graduate from FIU.
Okay.
And
does she work for the government?
She doesn't. She's a happy housewife with 2 wonderful kids.
Oh, okay.
By the way,
that's the hardest job ever, let me tell you.
How about FIU in 72? All right.
Okay. Okay.
So, and we love local schools, all right, and we love local government, and we're delighted that we see so many community councils, and right now, as far as with the county, the last 10 years is they've really been reaching out to people to try to connect. All right, and we see that makes a difference. And when we have folks from the Parks Department here, and we have people from the Mosquito Control Division, Animal Services, Mosquito Control, what they did, they came down. I said, "Would you bring one of those boxes filled with mosquitoes?" Sure enough,
They brought one.
the guy sticks his hand, Michael Moot, all right, sticks his hand into that box covered with mosquitoes. Does that hurt? He takes his hand out. No, it doesn't hurt. It was like, really?
Yeah,
his hand, it turned black.
He's braver than I am, that's for sure.
So let's talk about the future of disposal of products. What does that look like in 5 and 10 and 15 years here in Miami-Dade County?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, we'd have to look in our crystal ball and see where we are. But like I said, a lot of important decisions have to be made in the future of where we're going to go. The county did work on a master plan that we are yet to present to the Board of Commissioners. But I mean, ideally, I personally, I don't know about anybody else, I would love to see a mass burn new facility, which basically would burn anything and everything. And again, that would even be a form of recycling. Can you imagine having this building, okay, building an administration building on the same campus as you have your mass burn facility, and that facility can actually fuel or provide the lighting for the administration building. If we got electric vehicles, we could actually fuel our electric vehicles. I mean, that's an awesome vision. I mean, it's not my vision. Someone else in upper management had shared it, but I think it's a wonderful vision.
Thank goodness for people like you and people that are in this arena, because most folks think, I don't know, I put my garbage into the cart out front, and then they take it away. And occasionally I see the guy that does that, right? I know this is a very big deal. And for those people that don't know, the county services over 340,000 homes, more or less, for the green carts twice a week, which is gigantic. And there's more to it than just going out there, yes dear, and putting it into the garbage. There's this whole process with people like you that are professionals and that are happy to make our lives cleaner and better. Thank you very much for your time. Okay.
My pleasure.
Our guest today is Olga Espinosa-Anderson, who is the Assistant Director of Disposal Operations for Miami-Dade County. I want to thank Tommy for doing the show. And again, thank you for your time, and enjoy yourself. Bye.
Thank you for having me.